At this time, I'd like to call upon Commissioner Frank Morales to lead us in an invocation, please.
Oh Jesus, you suffered and died for us. You understand suffering. Teach us to understand our suffering as you do. You buried it in union with you. You will offer it with you to atone for our sins. To bring your grace to souls in need. To calm our fears. Increase our trust. May we gladly accept your holy will and become more like you in triumph. If it be your will, restore us to health, so that we may work for your honor and glory and the salvation of all men. Amen. Mary, help of the sick, pray for us.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody to our meeting tonight. We're glad to have you here, and we appreciate your involvement by participating in our meeting. At this time, I'm going to ask our city manager, Gabriel Gonzalez, to introduce one of the newest members of our Harlingen team, our new assistant city manager, Craig Cook.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce Craig Cook. He comes to us from outside of Houston. He has an architectural degree from Kansas State University, jurisprudence degree from South Texas College of Law, and he's been with us for a whole week and a half now, I believe, since January 24th. So, Craig, you want to come up and just say a few words about yourself?
Thank you, sir. Evening, Commissioners. I am Craig Cook. I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, went to Kansas State 40 years ago. I met my bride there and married her and joined the Navy. We went to South Carolina and Africa and the Middle East during those 10 years or so, 9 years or so when I was in the Navy.
Together or apart?
Together. She went with me.
You want to make sure?
Yeah, actually she was my secretary for a while, but that's another story. After that, I spent 29 years with Brown and Root, KBR, and I've lived in the Middle East, and I've worked in Europe, and most recently, I managed several large contracts where essentially I was a city manager, operating bases in Djibouti, in Africa, and in Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. And most recently in beautiful Baghdad for another company at the embassy. And in between all of that, I was the city engineer and public works director for Del Rio for about a year. Great to be here. I'm really excited about the job, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Thank you.
All right, Craig, well, welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Glad to have you here. All right, next item is citizen communication.
It's Juan D. Velasquez, 16438 Los Ranchitos, and she wants to be called mayor, so we'll give her a call.
Is this here? Are you Ms. Velasquez?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My name is Wandy Velasquez. We live in Los Ranchitos Road here in Harlingen. I want to pose a question tonight. Who is in charge of Harlingen? Some of you may say that is the mayor. Some of you may say that is even maybe the commissioners. But in reality, the citizens of Harlingen are the ones that are in charge of Harlingen. And for that reason, these forums are provided so that we can come and share our concerns. We're very concerned with some projects that were approved on Wilson Road. How were those projects approved? Why some similar projects in January were disapproved? Okay, so there's inconsistency here. Who is benefiting for that? Who approved the one in October? Who disapproved the ones in January? My husband and I, our home flooded in 2019. We lost all our first floor and the surrounding areas. We had to take a $100,000 SBA loan for us to be able to make all the construction because we didn't have flood insurance because we did not live in a flood zone. So we're demanding today that you tell us what's going on Wilson Road. Are there irrigation plans that are going to prevent the floods for us? We want to make sure that that's done. And trust me, we're not going to be silenced, okay? We're not going to sit here with our hands folded, doing nothing. I want this board and the city of Harlingen in general to be on notice that we will do whatever is legally possible within our means to find out why this is going on. I'm not the only one here worried about floods. Is anyone here in the room worried about floods? Please stand. If you're worried about floods,
worried about floods.
please stand.
I'm worried about floods.
Okay? So please, let us know what these inconsistencies are. We need to know. The city of Harlingen can grow. I'm all for that, but not at the expense of drowning their citizens. Thank you very much for your time, and whatever time I have, I yield to somebody else.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, Mayor.
All right.
The next one is Alex Mead, 6770 West Expressway 83, wants to speak on item number 12.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. My name's Alex Mead. I'm the Executive Vice President of Public Funds with Texas Regional Bank. And I'm just here as a resource. I know there's an action item regarding a certificate of deposits, so I'm just here as a resource in case anybody has any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
What was his name? That was Alex Mead.
Yes, the next one is Ron Lozano, 2410 Riverside Drive, City Elections and Professional Services.
Good afternoon. Mention of voter suppression. Georgia has familiar climate, 90 degrees in June, 90% humidity, over a 10-hour wait for a lot of the tradition that elderly people go out and vote. Most of your elders, I'm sure, vote, and so do mine. Well, they didn't like that these elderly people were willing to stand in line up to 11 hours in that kind of weather. So they forwarded legislation that made it a misdemeanor crime to give water to your own mom. That's voter suppression. Redistricting, the mayor's read the Constitution a couple of times. He knows decimal census occurs traditionally every 10 years. And yet, he's disjointed when his preferences don't pan out, even though he's had about 18 years of uncontrolled, unbridled context on that. The other thing is, I'm glad to hear that initially the way things are being done right now, an oblique reference to professional service, I do think that if Rutledge gets that he's going to maybe expand some of the staff to try to help Harlingen. And so thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
The next person is Raymond Reyes, 706 Nantucket Drive, responsibility.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Mayor. My name is Raymond Reyes, 706 Nantucket Drive. Just briefly, I wanted to stop by and speak a little bit about responsibility, which has a lot of different meanings. But basically, we need to make sure that we're responsible for the things that the citizens of Harlingen place in your hands to make sure is overseen and taken care of properly. There's always some kind of misstep, having some issues right now with some of the certain streets in Harlingen, specifically the one on Commerce. One of my vehicles suffered some damage again due to potholes. I had a friend visiting from San Antonio that was looking to expand one of his businesses, kind of throwing Harlingen out there because he has a very good business. He ran into an issue when he went through Commerce as well. I know I got some information that some of the issues are being addressed, but apparently there's only one truck and one crew to address these type of issues. And I'm certain that, you guys can do what you do, put your minds together and come up with something. I mean, Harlingen is growing. It's going to continue being an issue along with the other issues that have to be addressed. But I think that's something that definitely needs to be looked at, because not your average citizen can suffer damage to their vehicle. And if that's their only vehicle they have, then what are they going to do for doctor's appointments, picking up grandkids, going to work, and things of that nature? Now, we're not all in the same boat. But as long as we keep making progress forward, I think, we can get the issue addressed and resolved. So that's basically all that I had today. Thank you again for your time, and you all continue doing a good job. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
The next one is Robert Leftwich, 909 East Parkwood, Public Funds Investment Act.
Robert Leftwich, 909 East Parkwood. Yes, I wanted to speak on behalf of the agenda item regarding the public funds investment. I just wanted to kind of inform the public, because I don't think it's going to be spelled out, but the city of Harlingen does have a policy that works with the state law, and I just wanted to read the objectives of that policy. I'm going to start off with the objectives. The city of Harlingen shall manage and invest its cash with 3 objectives listed in order of priority: preservation, safety, and principle, liquidity, and yield. All investments shall be designed and managed in a manner using judgment and care responsive to the public trust and consent with the state and local law. The fact that, it's not rocket science to know that the fact that they have a state law is because you have fraud. You have a lot of money. You've got tens of millions of dollars in general funds, fund balances sitting around. A lot of banks would like to get their hands on that. But the fact is that the investment policy for our money goes on and complies further with the state law. And the definition of preservation and safety principles is that the primary objective of the city's cash investment activity is the capital in the overall portfolio transactions shall be conducted in a manner to avoid capital losses, whether from securities default or erosion or market value. And I feel more comfortable if I understand that certain CDs that we have some protections, because they do exceed the $250,000 CD limit. The other one is liquidity. The city's investment portfolio shall be structured such that the city is able to meet all the obligations in a timely manner. Hopefully, we're not pinned down by some maturity dates that we can't access that fund without penalty. Surely, if we would have done that with the bank that's holding our money, we're not going to see any penalty if we need to do that. Third is the yield. The city's cash management portfolio shall be designed with the objective of regularly exceeding the average rate of the return on 3-month U.S. Treasury bills. If we're not getting the yield, we can't pay for drainage in the city.
To wrap it up.
Okay, and I'll just finish up. The investment program shall seek to augment above the threshold consistent with the risk limitations identified herein and prudent. And again, if we're not getting the right yields on the money, then it's a disservice to the community.
Next one there is John Lane, 1702 Gabriel's Landing, subdivision development discrepancy, and he would like his comments to be read. So let me read his comments. It reads like this. On October 13, 2021, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved the subdivision to be developed in Palm Valley Heights. Then on January 12, 2022, the Planning and Zoning Committee rejected the development of 2 subdivisions, which are the Cary Estates subdivision and the Legend South subdivision. Why was the October 13, 21 Planning and Zoning Commission approving a subdivision with the same development criteria as the subdivisions that were disapproved on January 12, 2022? Was it because the only qualified person, civil engineer, on the October 13, 21 was not present at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, or maybe putting money over people was the issue? Now let's take in regards the majority members on the Planning and Zoning Committee that was not present at the January 12, 2022, consisting of 3 civil engineers and 1 construction specialist. Now the picture is getting clearer. The members on the October 13, 2021 Planning and Zoning Commission had their only person qualified to make the subdivision development criteria decisions absent. I believe the people of Harlingen should file a class action lawsuit against this Palm Valley Heights subdivision, decisive made by the Planning and Zoning Commission and all the members that approved the development. I also recall that all the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission as appointed by the mayor and the commissioners. I yield my time.
All right, thank you.
The last one there is David Garcia, and he would also like for us to read his comments. Reads like this. More and more neighborhoods are being built. I am sure the city is happy for future taxation. Palm Valley Heights on Wilson Road, my understanding is that it is not meeting minimum requirements for drainage. How can you allow this to happen, knowing that how devastating the flood of June 2019? Every neighborhood being built affects each of the surrounding neighborhoods. I live off Masters behind PNC Bank, but even though I feel for the Richmond Circle across the street who I feel will be directly impacted, I oppose this development unless it meets minimum drainage requirements. And that's it.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. That concludes our citizen communication. And let's go on to item number 1, a presentation of an award from the Harlingen Police Department, Life-Saving Award to Public Safety Communications Officer Moises Cruz for his actions on 12/24/21 for saving the life of a newborn baby. Chief?
Mayor, Commissioners, allow me to explain exactly what Moises did that day. Moises, why don't you come up here? And his supervisor, Cindy, come on up. So on Christmas Eve, right around noontime, Moises gets a call, a 911 call, and the call drops. Luckily, with the great system we have with the county, we know what the number was. So he calls back immediately, and a male answers and says, my wife just gave birth, and the baby's not breathing and turning purple. So while another dispatcher was calling EMS, Moises immediately jumped in and started giving instructions on how to perform child CPR. And this is some of the training we provide for our dispatchers. So through a tense couple of minutes, the parents really followed the directions, and the baby began to breathe, and the color came back to the baby, and they're very thankful. And because of Moises' clear, quick thinking, calm and clear directions he provided, the parents were able to perform the CPR on their child until EMS arrived. So Moises' experience, knowledge, and actions under pressure are in keeping with the highest standards of service and core values of the Harlingen Police Department. He is an outstanding example of the critically important role that 911 dispatchers play as first responders in service to the public. Moises is a hero and a lifesaver for us. Because of his actions, this family had a great Christmas rather than, a tragic one. So he is well deserving of one of the HPD's highest awards, which is the life-saving medal. So, which I failed to add on. I left, and it's coming right now. So I'll be here in a minute. I thought you had. But we can get a group picture with him. Okay.
Well, let's give him a standing ovation for that. Everybody, please join us. Congratulations.
You don't mind?
Let's go.
Well, he can just talk about the changes, but I don't have to. He can just say it's going to make some changes to it. Wait, what? Okay, he brought me to hurry. Just-
Thank you.
Well, that's a wonderful story, Chief. Thank you so much for bringing that to our attention, and thank you for sharing that with us. Congratulations to all of your department for making sure that that training gets done, and Moises, thank you for saving the life of that baby and making us all proud. Thank you so much. All right, I think we're going to go to item
number 11.
9. Do we need to do 9 and 10 first and then 11, or do we need to do 11 with Remy here? Remy, come on up. I think. Hang on a second. Let me just figure out which items to call. Do I need to call 9 and 10 first, or just 11?
I think we're just going to talk about the Cameron County contract. Is that correct?
Contract.
Yeah, Amanda is downstairs right now making copies of the updated. So if you'd like to wait a few minutes for her to come back with the updated contract.
I know that you had asked to be moved up, so we want to accommodate you.
Thank you. I
You have
appreciate
another meeting to go to, so we'll wait.
As soon as Amanda gets back in the room, I'm sure we'll be ready to go.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right.
Mayor, actually, the resolution calls for the contracting. So I prefer if you would do 9, 10, and then 11.
Okay. Let's go to the consent agenda. I have some questions about the minutes, so I think Amanda needs to be here for that. Item 3, consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. The motion carries. Item 4, consideration possible action to approve an ordinance on second reading amending the City of Harlington's budget for fiscal year 2022. Robert?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, City Commissioners. Before you, we have the second reading of the budget ordinance. As I said in the last meeting, we did add the fire truck. For the general fund, we also added some proceeds that we had for insurance, totaling approximately $124,000. For expenditures, we added some PD, LEOSE travel and training, approximately $500,000, and the fire truck for $500,000.
Sorry, the one before that was 500.
5,000.
Oh, 5,000.
Sorry, I misspoke on that. It's 5,000.
That's
The truck
intense
is
training.
500,000. We did add for Harlingen Convention and Visitors Bureau, 50,000 for the marathon, and 45,000 for expenditures on the marathon. In revenues and expenditures for the grant, we did add some to the COVID-19 because we're bringing over some of that money from the previous year that we hadn't spent yet. So we plan to spend it in the current year and moving forward. And those are all the additions from the first reading that were added to the second reading. So I move for approval.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this item? If not, is there a motion to approve the
Motion.
ordinance?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Let's take up item number 6. Consideration of possible action to approve item number 7, rather. Consideration and possible action to approve a proposal from Boy Scout Brian N. Wilson, who will fund and construct improvements at the Thicket Nature Park as part of his Eagle Scout project. Javier?
Yes, Mayor, City Commission. Mr. Brian Wilson is here in the audience, and he's going to do a short presentation to you. But he approached us about wanting to do a project for his Eagle Scout, and he wants to do the project at the Thicket. And so he met with our Park Advisory Board, and the board has recommended bringing us to the City Commission for approval. Brian, you want to do your presentation?
Good afternoon,
Welcome.
Commissioners.
How old are you, sir?
16.
Jeez.
I get that a lot. As previously stated, I am Brian Wilson, out of Troop 1701, located here in Harlingen, hosted at FUMC. I'm currently a Life Scout working on my Eagle Scout project, and thus I need to do an Eagle Scout project. And while there are many to choose from, I chose to do one here at a local park, that park being actually quite close to me considering I live on Bush Street. And it being close to me means I've actually walked that trail numerous times. And because I've walked it numerous times, I've noticed a couple of problems that would need to be fixed. So more on Harlingen Thicket. Harlingen Thicket is a 40-acre expanse of Rio Grande Valley plants and animals. It's a nature park with a lot of trails for people to walk. It's a great place to be outdoors and to get away from just the city environment. And walking this trail, I've noticed 3 major issues that I believe need to be addressed. Those being trail damage, sign damage, and lack of benches. Trail damage. There's been a large gorge that is formed not too far from the entrance of the park. This gorge being roughly 2 to 3 feet deep at some places, which makes it very hard to traverse this portion of trail. This also means that it's nearly impossible for people that are less able, such as the elderly, to pass this part of the trail, and thus locks out the rest of the park to them. I believe this can be fixed with a simple refill of caliche, as well as implementing erosion prevention. The next problem I've noticed is a lack of benches. If you look, I have a plan for where I would like to place these benches. In the red, I'd like to place back benches, as there is a wall of trees there, and thus you wouldn't be able to get a view from the back. And the flat benches in blue, where it's more opened, and thus would be able to have a 360 view. It being the birding center, I think 360 benches would make the birders very happy. Another thing, these are views from the benches. On the left, you have the views from the back benches, and on the right, you have a 360 panorama from the benches that would be open top. Another thing I've noticed is sign damage, and although not critical, as they are still able to be read, it is unsightly. It's not the best look for Harlingen. Considering this park is part of the World Birding Center along with Hugh Ramsey Park, it is visited by many people every year, not just from the Rio Grande Valley, but all over Texas. And thus, having these signs in this condition is just a very poor reflection here of Harlingen. Benefits I see from this project happening is increased safety. It's pretty hard to sprain your ankle on a gorge if the gorge doesn't exist. Reduced liability. I know that the City of Harlingen likes to open up this park for events down at McKinley Park, such as the lighting of Harlingen, and people's eyes that are not acclimated to the dark, such as those entering from the parking lot to go down the trails, are not able to see the gorge as well as they should be able to. It's going to have an improved experience for trail goers, as it would allow the elderly and other people that are less able to access the entirety of the trail instead of just the first portion. And I also believe it'd be a better image for Harlingen as a whole, as it would show that Harlingen actually cares about the outdoors and its parks. It would also reflect best to all those visiting from outside of the city, not just from the Rio Grande Valley, but all over Texas. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Wilson?
It's a great presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Good job.
Okay. Well, thank you for identifying this as a project for your Eagle project, and thank you for offering to propose these fixes to the thicket. That's a real great park that we have, and we're very proud of it, but we'll be even more proud of it once these fixes are implemented by you. And with that, is there a motion to approve the project?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. I have no doubt that you're going to do very, very well in your Eagle Board of Review based on the presentation that you made here tonight. So good luck with the project and good luck with your Board of Review. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so now I think we can go to Mr. Garza's items number 9, consideration of possible action to approve a resolution calling and ordering the May 7th, 2022 City of Harlingen general election to elect one member for the position of mayor at large, one member for city commissioner for District 1, and one member for city commissioner District 2 to the Harlingen governing body, and any other matters related to the election.
Mayor, this is a resolution to call the election for the general election for May the 7th, 2022. And it talked about the deadline for filing application for to be a candidate on the city election. It started on January the 19th and will end on February the 18th. Remy Garza is going to talk about the joint election agreements and the early voting and all of that together. So I'll pass it on to Remy.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome, Remy. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you all, and I certainly appreciate the consideration to move the item up on the agenda. Cameron County is currently undergoing the preparations for the March primary, as I think some of your board members may know. During primary years, the county has the flexibility as to whether or not to accept administrative contracts from local jurisdictions that are holding their elections in May. However, because we've had a policy in Cameron County since even my predecessor was in place, Mr. Chris Davis, we believe that it is a better voting experience if the county is administering contracts during the May elections for local jurisdictions, because the voting experience will be the same for the voter, and that we will be training the individuals to use the county equipment as it changes and develops, and we're able to make the laptops available to those entities that are contracted with us. And I speak to the laptops because they're going to play an important part in part of the conversation I think we're going to be having. So generally, we have been picking up gradually jurisdictions throughout the years for May elections, including ultimately Los Indios, Combs, Primera, some of even the smaller jurisdictions that you normally wouldn't think would need to have the DS 200s at their polling locations and have it an automatic counting process versus the hand counting because they have so few ballots. And it is an extra tax on the office itself, because we're still having to go through the exact same motions that we would go through if it were a statewide or countywide election. May always feels different to the voters because the jurisdictions that are conducting elections have a lot more flexibility with respect to the selection of their polling locations and the consolidation of the county precincts, because county precincts can sometimes contain areas that are not in the city limits, or now in the current situation will contain multiple single-member districts within the boundaries of a county precinct. But the city had that ability to consolidate, to choose its polling locations, and choose their early voting locations within their jurisdictional boundaries. This particular May is a little different, and I think I want to make the distinction for the city, because this May, the Texas legislature is requiring that the county conduct a countywide election to consider 2 constitutional amendments. Normally, we do those in a November special election in the odd-numbered years, but during the special sessions, they added 2 additional amendments that needed to be considered. And they're considered on the next uniform election day, which would be the May 7th uniform election day. So Cameron County is going to be conducting a countywide election this May. And as such, it is going to be opening up its precincts throughout Cameron County. And the voters will be going to in all areas of Cameron County to their polling locations. Usually during a county-wide election for constitutional amendments, we are able to consolidate so that we have fewer polling locations, because turnout is usually a lot less, and you're able to save money, but you're also able to create specific polling locations. This May, because it is contracting with other jurisdictions, they decided to expand on the list of what their normal special election, constitutional amendment elections would be. And so when Harlingen is considering entering into a contract with the county for this election, it's actually the perfect one to do it, but it's also going to feel very different because normally Cameron County is not having a countywide election in May. And so you had that discretion to choose your polling locations. But because there is a countywide location, the city would be required to use the same polling locations that the county is using during that election, even if they're consolidated precincts. So regardless of whether or not you're contracting with us to administer it, which actually in this May would actually be a joint election agreement with the Cameron County, since they're actually holding an election, and not just contracting with the elections administrator to administer the contract, you would still have to locate your polling locations at those same precinct locations that were selected within your city, within your jurisdictional boundaries. You would also, if you were going to have early voting, you would also have your staff at those early voting locations that are within your jurisdictional boundaries. It places a different feel on this May election for the city, because I know the city, I'd have to ask Amanda as to exactly how many polling places are normally selected. I know it's depending on how many single-member districts are on the ballot or what the expected turnout is going to be. But I think it's much closer. Amanda, if you could help me with respect to generally a May election has how many precincts in Harlingen?
Well, as far as with I'm not gonna, do you want the school together or?
No, just the ones that.
5.
It's 5. And so with the county holding its countywide election, there's actually 13 polling locations that are going to be located within not necessarily within the jurisdictional boundaries of Harlingen, but the contained jurisdictional boundaries of Harlingen. And I can give you the specific example. As if you have the maps that were passed out, you'll see that there's a polling location identified in Combs for Precinct 87, because the city has that antenna that kind of shoots out the top, has the jurisdictional boundaries. And then also, I think it's Precinct 25 that goes down towards Los Fresnos following Paseo Real, Los Indios. And so there's a polling place in Los Indios. So voters would be directed to go to those locations, even though they're not in the city boundaries of Harlingen. So there's the 13 locations, and I believe you all have a list of the polling locations that were based on what the Commissioners Court approved yesterday as the May election polling locations for the countywide election. When Cameron County administers a contract on behalf of a small community, it really just takes care of the mechanics of the election and not necessarily the legal responsibilities that the city has with respect to posting, accepting candidate applications, campaign finance reports, notices in the newspaper of the election, things of that nature. We really, we do the logic and accuracy testing. We prepare the ballots, and I'll talk a little bit about the ballots in a minute. And we secure the polling locations, and we hire the staff. During a normal May election, we present that list to the city leadership so that it can be reviewed to make sure there's no conflicts as to who's been chosen to work at a polling place. Make sure, because we're not familiar with who's related to who or what, who's supporting who or things like that, those types of conflicts. So there's always the opportunity for the candidates or the leadership to review the listing of the poll workers before it's finalized. And even the poll worker list is never finalized until the actual election day, because you never know who's not going to show up or somebody's going to cancel at the last minute. So we secure the poll workers. We conduct the early voting part of the election. We conduct your early voting central count, where we process and actually count the votes that apply to your jurisdiction. We would then open the central count for the election day ballots that are coming in. And of course, they would be using the DS-200s, and so we're collecting the USB drives at the central count. And that would be a distinct difference if Cameron County administers, or even in this joint election, because you all are used to having your results coming into either City Hall or some other centralized location within the community where people can come and either watch the results come out or hear things announced from that location. Because it's a countywide election, and it would be extremely costly and personnel-wise to have multiple central counts, They would all be conducted at Brownsville. All the results, the early voting count would occur in Brownsville. All the results throughout the election night would come into Brownsville, and the results would still be released to the city leadership first to review, and then they're usually posted on the internet, or they're released on your website, or whatever decision you make with respect to that. There are, I think, 16 jurisdictions that are holding elections this May that have contracted with the county, if you include Harlingen and the school district. And because there's that many jurisdictions, this election we're also going to be, for the second time in Cameron County's history, doing it as a true joint election, meaning that the voter would go into the polling place, they would check in to one polling location, and then we would have the appropriate ballot style that contains all the jurisdictions that voter is eligible for. For example, if you had a precinct where there were 2 single-member districts, and one was on the ballot, one had a contested race, and the other one didn't. The voter, in getting its particular ballot sequence, the voter who is qualified to vote in the single-member district race would have that race included on their ballot. It would be on there. And the other voter, who was not within that single-member district, was in the other, would then get a ballot that did not contain that race. It would have the citywide races, it would have the charter amendments, everything else, the constitutional amendments, the school district if they fell within that one of those jurisdictions that has both of those, but it wouldn't contain it. And that's the benefit of having the laptop, because the programming in the check-in point, just like you do during a normal county election, is able to identify exactly what jurisdictions and what races somebody is eligible to go to vote in, and so they're going to get that specific ballot. And in the past, I think that it was a criticism from some jurisdictions, because precincts that had multiple ballot styles, meaning there were parts, there was a chance that somebody who was in precinct 12 might get the wrong ballot style, and it would include races that it wasn't supposed to have, or it wouldn't include races that it was supposed to have. But now that we're going with the ballot sequence, it's only the poll worker's only looking for one number. It's sequence 72, and that's the ballot the person's eligible for, and they spread them out the same process as though it were precinct. So we think that's going to eliminate a lot of any opportunities for that ballot mistakes by the poll worker.
So did you say you're going to administer the school district's elections as well?
Yes, the school district approved the contract several weeks ago. We had presented some of the information. At that time, we didn't have the commissioners' courts approved countywide county locations, and so we're going to have to provide them with that updated information. Which, if there is for some reason a change in the polling locations, and I'll talk about that in a second, is that we would we'd ask them to either amend the order or just to acknowledge it as to make the public aware and the board aware that either a polling place wasn't acceptable, or something happened to the building, or wasn't available. And I mention that because I know that you all have copies of the maps that are in front of you that includes a map of Harlingen with the actual, by color, the new single-member district lines. And Amanda, I forwarded you an email that has more of the polling places on it. I don't know if you can access it and put it on the monitors from here. But if not, it's essentially the same map. It just includes Bowie Elementary and Harlingen High School South that aren't included on the map in front of you. So
South is going to be a polling place?
Yes, South will be a polling place for Precinct 5.
And that's for
5.
Election day or election day?
For Election Day, yes, for Election Day. I'm talking specifically about Election Day. I'll talk about early voting in a second.
Okay.
But when I was reviewing this map after the court took the action, one of the things that immediately jumped out at me is that Precinct District, Single-Member District 1, which is the purple area that has the antenna on the top, only has one polling place located in it at Long Elementary. And there are some consolidations, for example, Precinct 34 and 56, and the north of Precinct 44. So what I'm going to do is work with the city leadership or get direction from you all as a board to, we can try to find another location so that there are 2 polling locations at least in each of the single-member districts rather than just the one. Long Elementary is just one of those locations that we use all the time. Regardless of the size of the election, it's always pretty much going to have a polling place in it.
Have you guys ever used TSCC?
It's been used during the Republican primaries. They use TSTC, and it's a good spot, but it's a little far removed from where people normally move, so it's not one we choose on a regular basis.
Okay.
But it has been used.
Do you have a recommendation?
At the moment, I don't, but I would be looking at probably either Precinct 56 or somewhere in that area of Precinct 34 to see if there's a suitable location. I think TSTC would be probably a good one. I just need to make sure it's not going to be in 84. So I would think that would be a good alternate.
You can even use the high school.
I mean, I was going to ask you about the Cardinal campus. 'Cause
Yeah, the Cardinal campus using south, you can use north.
Everybody knows where the school is.
In the past, Harlingen Public Library, or rather the museum has been used as a polling place. It's right there on the TSDC campus.
Okay. Yeah,
for District 1.
Right. I think that would be an appropriate location. It's known. It's got good traffic back and forth. People could probably get in and out. And it's got a lot of parking on it.
Which one are you referring?
The museum location that's situated there in the TSDC campus.
So the thing on the polling locations, the thing that jumps out at me is that, instead of using Stewart Place Elementary, for example, we're using Harlingen High School South.
Well, Stewart Place Elementary is still there. It's being used. When we redistricted the county precincts, we eliminated the unincorporated areas out of the Precinct 85 and 29 so that you could get that symmetry. So right now, Stewart Place Elementary would be utilized. Let me see. There's a dot there, and it's in 29.
It's not on this list.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this too. It's not there as Precinct 29. They have that at Harlingen High School South, but I think
it's on the map.
Yeah, that it's there, but it shouldn't be because it's not one of the ones. This is a GIS issue, but because 5 would have Gutierrez and would have Harlingen High School South, or it could have Gutierrez and Stewart Place Elementary. That's one of those situations where my map is not as accurate as I had thought it was going to be.
Okay, and then the other one, why the Utrgv Clinical Education Building instead of Treasure Hills Elementary?
Because Treasure Hills Elementary doesn't let us use their location as a polling location during countywide elections. It used to be used, but they said they no longer wanted to make it available. We had moved to the Treasure Hills Presbyterian Church for a while, but I think the voting started to get too big at that location, and so now we're at the UTRGV auditorium, which has got plenty of parking, is a big space, and the college has been asking us to utilize them.
Okay, so the school district said you can't use it for...
We didn't ask them for this election, but the school district has said in the past that they did not want us to use that campus.
Well, I mean, I think you should ask them because
yeah, no,
they're having their election also. People are used. What I'm concerned about is changing. I think it's great to add locations, but I think it's confusing to people to change the locations that they've historically voted in.
And I think that's true, which is one of the reasons why we, from the county's perspective, is looking for that consistency too. And so when the Commissioners Court are considering their locations, Stewart Place Elementary isn't available to us, so it's not someplace that we would try to redirect voters in a countywide election to. But that's not to say that with your all's request, I could go back to the Commissioners Court and say their Stewart Place Elementary would like to be available. The difficulty that we would have in making that selection is that we would ask the school district that would be the polling place for that area and not just for the one election. Because I love the city.
Commit to it.
It would be a commitment because there are far more elections when you think of primary runoff in November than the city election. So the voters would want that consistency because currently, as it stands, yes, they vote at Stewart Place Elementary. They have voted at Stewart Place Elementary in the past, but they don't often vote at Stewart Place Elementary. And I don't mean that as a challenge. It's just that if a regular voter is voting other places, and now we're hoping to be consistent with the UTRGV campus because we think it's a great facility. But that's not to say it's not my decision. It's a conversation between the commission and the Commissioners Court. Just because the county's having a countywide election. Otherwise, it would be completely your discretion to say where you wanted to have the polling places.
I have a couple of questions.
Like next thing. Yes, sir.
So, districts 1, 2, and the mayor are up in May.
Yes.
So the mayor's ballot will be at
all locations throughout the city.
Yes.
People who live in District 1, they have to vote at the polling place in District 1?
On election day, they would be voting at the location that's identified in one of those county precincts. As we were
Is that
talking,
Long,
there
you
would
have
be
here
two.
Long Elementary.
Right,
So-
Long Elementary, yeah.
Yeah. And so people in District 2 will vote at Austin Elementary.
People who voted Austin Elementary will vote.
No, I see that's now 3. I'm sorry, so where will people
Vernon.
in 2? Vernon.
Yeah, there's some of the overlap of the districts. We'll have people who live in single-member District 2 voting at Zavala and voting at Vernon. In Austin, there will be some people who reside in single-member District Number 2 who will be voting at Austin Elementary, as well as people who reside in District 3.
And then you mentioned Harlingen citizens can vote in Combs, which is a different city, and Los Indios, which is a different city. Did I understand that correctly?
It would be Harlingen citizens that live within County Precinct 87, and I can tell you that nobody actually lives there. There's nobody that lives in that little section.
Okay,
I think
so will any Harlingen citizens, Districts 1 through 5, will they be able to vote in Combs or Los Indios?
only the individuals that live within the county precinct that also shares Harlingen city limits, yes.
And where's that on this map?
If you look at the map, you can see the white area is the unincorporated areas or belong to another jurisdiction. The little purple line that cuts across the top of 87, that's the city limit line of Harlingen. And then if you follow the green line down towards the river, you can see that it goes through precincts 23 and 25. Anybody who actually resides in that portion of precinct 23 or 25 would actually be casting their city ballot. They'd find their ballot at their precinct polling place. It would be there for them at the Los Indios Community Center.
So people in 23 and 25, can they also vote at what you currently have now as Utrgv rack?
No, unless, let me just make sure for precinct 23. Actually, the portion of precinct 23 shares with precinct 43, which they would actually be voting at Bonita Park. I'm sorry, my mistake. The consolidation, I was wrong.
Wait. You're saying 23 and 43 have to vote in District 4? Even though they're in District 3?
They're polling because they're using the county precincts, and that's the consolidation the Commissioners Court has made between those two precincts. The polling location is at Bonita Park.
And so this is clear as mud, I'm sure.
Well, it becomes more clear for the voter who's voting in the countywide election because they only have to go to one location in order to cast ballots for every election they're eligible for. And it would prevent them having to drive to multiple locations to participate in one jurisdiction's election and another jurisdiction's election. And like I said, this May is unique. We're normally not involved in May elections. And it's state requirements that if there's a polling location within your jurisdiction, you have to use that polling location at the county precinct.
So it's the state that decides that?
Yes.
Yeah, because I was wondering, because I know in early voting you can go anywhere, correct?
During early voting, they can go to any location, and in fact, the City of Harlingen ballots will be available at all 18 locations that are currently selected for early voting. So if you're working Brownsville, you could stop at the Brownsville location, and your ballot will be there, and you can vote for all the elections you're eligible for at that location.
So it's the state that decides that on election day you have to go to a specific spot?
Yes, because Cameron County is precinct-based, we don't have the countywide system yet. You have to go to your specific precincts or the polling location where your precinct has been consolidated to.
I understand the syncing up of the polling places with where you normally vote in a county election, and that makes sense. That makes sense to me, and that's certainly workable. It's certainly, and I do think, people are in a county election or the national election, they're used to voting at, say, Austin Elementary, but on election day and here in Harlingen, then they have to vote at Zavala, and that's so that it makes sense. It makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
What doesn't make sense to me is if you're when we're adding is where we're changing the county's designated polling place from a location where people are normally that normally vote in a county election or a city election to some other place. And so I think there's no reason why the county polling location can't be where people in those precincts have historically voted, right?
Yes, and that's something that can be considered.
Because the RAC is not, the County Education Building is not, that's new.
That started in the constitutional election in November of 2021.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, because we're at, during November of 2020, we used the bogus pavilion because the Treasure Hills, one of the commissioners on our board thought the parking lot was too small and knew there was going to be a large turnout. And that is as a result of 79 being, sort of more residential, and the only location was the hospital, and of course during COVID, the last place you want to try to send people.
And then on the early vote, and then on the two early voting places I'm seeing are the county annex on Wilson Road, and then possibly the convention center, but no others.
We can add more, though,
early
correct?
voting locations.
You can
Commissioner,
add-
I'd like to be able to finish my question, please.
Currently, the two polling locations for early voting that the Commissioners Court historically uses in Harlingen and selected for this election are going to be the Wilson Road Annex and the Harlingen Cultural Arts Center. But the Commissioners Court expressed, because there's been interest from the Commission and the city to have either additional locations, for example, City Hall, or the Event Center, the court said that they will gladly consider them, but they would ask the jurisdiction would have to pick up that expense.
I'm sorry, I did not see the Cultural Arts Center on there. It didn't make, to me, it didn't make sense to have two locations out there kind of in the same neighborhood, the Convention Center and the County Annex, and not have anything more in the central part of the city. So that's fine.
Yeah, the Harlingen Cultural Arts Center, perhaps may not be, celebrated as an early voting site, but it actually competes with the Wilson Road Annex with respect to turnout during county elections. It's turning to be a good location.
Okay. All right. Well, what do you need us? Does anybody have any other questions for Remy?
I do. Excuse me. On District 4, you have Bonita Park. You'll have elections held at Bonita Park and Bowie Elementary. Is that what you're looking at?
Yes, I believe those are the two locations. And then there are, I believe, some individuals who reside in either 30 or 92. I need to find my map. I thought I had three locations that possible voters would be voting at that lived in District 4, but primarily it's Bonita Park and the Bowie Elementary, and probably Precinct 36, which would be Harlingen High School South, where some people who are currently zoned for single-member District 4 would actually be voting.
Okay.
And so, like I said, I recognize the new district boundaries are, kind of, right now it's in flux because the county just changed its precincts. And so there's even some people who are going to be going to places that are new as it is.
But that's kind of the advantage of having them is early voting, that they're going to be able to vote even if they're at the wrong place, right?
Yeah, during early voting throughout Cameron County, those ballots will be available.
I think the process that you're doing, Remy, I applaud you, because I know in the whole spectrum of the way it's set up, it is kind of confusing, but to the individual precinct card holder, it makes sense.
Okay.
And I know for years since when I turned 18 and I was able to go and register to vote, I had always voted in precinct 35, and then for some reason or another, that was by the commission, I don't know when, was taken away, and it caused a lot of confusion, so people had to either go to Zavala or Bonham. So including more precincts, I think, is awesome, and I applaud you for the work that you're doing, and I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you, Commissioner. But yeah, it's ultimately the court that decides the polling locations.
Okay.
And in future May elections, though, if we're contracted, you all would be making every one of those decisions.
If it's in May.
If it's in May, yeah, I forgot there's I forgot that's to be determined. And I can tell you that November is going to be even broader during a presidential or gubernatorial year because you'll actually be using the individual precincts as best as you can, so there'll be even more polling locations.
And even even on the off years when there's no presidential or gubernatorial races, it's still a good thing because people remember November, and you're going to have all these precincts included.
Yes, I think there's countywide there's 64 locations during the constitutional amendment. I'm sorry, I think it's 64, and I'm trying to think of exactly how many we have for this one, but there are more locations in this election than normal, only because we anticipate the higher turnout because of all the jurisdictions that are holding elections simultaneously.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, well, I kind of think we've been really discussing
I have a few questions.
Even though we're on item 9, they're related.
I think of the joint election nature that the Commissioners Court has to.
But let's go ahead and take action on item 9.
I had a few questions. I wasn't done.
Simply calling the
I had a few questions that I get.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So how would it go about, like, how do we go about adding those, like, say, City Hall and the, for the early election, we're going to have, as of right now, you have the Cultural Arts Center and you have the Convention Center, correct?
No, it's the Cultural Arts Center and the Wilson Road Annex.
And the annex, yes.
Right.
So how do we go about adding City Hall and the Convention Center?
It would be a correspondence from the city requesting those locations, and then it would go to the Commissioners Court for ultimate approval. But it would come with the commitment that any locations that are added outside the normal early voting, the ones that have already been approved, the jurisdiction itself would assume the cost of that.
Okay, yes.
And that could be shared with the two, if the school district is willing to split with the city because it agrees that those are good locations, then it would be split between whichever entities requested it.
Okay, and I had one more question, because I agree with the mayor about the change, like he said about Treasure Hills, and then, Stewart Place, Elementary and all that. So we can also add on Election Day, we can add additional places on Election Day, or no?
You can. I could take it back to the Commissioners Court and looking at the map saying, Commissioners, this location has historically been used in this election. It's used during a big November election. We would recommend that location be included and those two precincts split up so that they would each go to their respective precincts. I think that works for the voter too.
Okay, and how would that work?
You send
Just
us
the same thing as the other way?
Send us a letter, but there wouldn't be any additional cost for that type of division.
Okay.
It's only the early voting. Election day is not nearly as costly.
With his question right there, in District 4, we have Bonita Park. If we decide it's best to go back to Jefferson, because that's where people have voted, and remove Bonita Park, would that be possible?
I would say it's possible, but it's not something that I would necessarily recommend to the Commissioners Court to consider because I don't remember if Jefferson is a location that is frequently utilized as a polling location during county elections or primary elections or those types of elections. But ultimately, they decide, and if it is, and it does make sense because the city uses that location frequently during its May elections and people are used to going there in May, then obviously they would probably favorably consider it, and I would recommend it at that time.
And so would we have to, because I know you said, for example, the mayor brought up Treasure Hills, would we have to contact the school district, or would that be you contacting the school district?
We would contact it, but certainly would hope you would have
Okay.
somebody help us encourage that.
Well, I mean, we could approve the contract tonight as presented, but include in that motion a request to add or substitute Jefferson, Stewart Place, Treasure Hills Elementary.
Because I agree with you in what you're saying, that, familiarity is important.
Okay, well, I mean, that would be one way to do it, I suppose.
Yep.
Yes, Mayor, my understanding is that the county just approved the early voting and election day polling places. So in terms of approving the contract, I would make sure that the polling locations are subject to any final revisions and the best development.
But if we approve the contract, we could, I'm suggesting that we just go ahead and approve the contract, but then add a request so that operates as the direction to the staff and to the Commissioners Court to add these polling places. Yeah, okay. All right. So that's,
Mayor, may I ask him a question? Remy, if we add additional polling places, will the cost to the city just be the cost of the facility or the personnel also?
If it's an early voting location, it would be everything that's involved with that location, which would include personnel and maybe some small ballot charges just to make sure it's stocked for everything.
Okay.
But election day, what I was saying is that I think that's appropriate, and we'll take that to the count. That would just be part of the regular being split by everybody.
Okay, also, and could you change Harlingen Event Center to Harlingen Convention Center?
Yeah, that's not a problem. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and luckily we're far enough we're early enough in the process that there's still opportunities to make changes to finalize it based on your request.
What is your deadline, Jim?
Obviously, technically, if it's 24 hours before the election actually starts, but you obviously want to have plenty of time for planning purposes and to make sure it's staffed.
okay.
Mayor, I have a question for you. We're talking about, we're blending in 9, 10, and 11 in this conversation, correct?
Well, technically, we're on 9.
9, I know, but aren't we blending conversations?
We kind of are, but
Okay,
that's
so-
why I'm saying let's go ahead and pass item 9. Call for the election. We're going to have an election.
Okay.
Get that over with.
And then we
go
can
on to
continue with
10,
10.
The charter amendments, and then go on to 11. We can talk a little bit more about the contract. Okay, so we have item 9. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
Sir, someone has a question.
Have a vote?
You have a citizen that wants to ask a question. Is he permitted to ask a question?
I'm sorry?
You have a citizen who wants to ask a question. Is he permitted?
Well, do we have a motion and a second?
Motion.
Motion and a second.
Second.
All right, if you will come forward and state your name, we'll take a limited number of questions.
My name is Nicolas Cruz. I've lived on the west side of Harlingen since 1963. And Jefferson always been historically used as our voting place. I don't know why it was moved to Bonita Park. There's more dense population at the Jefferson area. It's farther for us to go. We have to go across town to Bonham, Bowie, to vote where we used to vote down the street. I don't know what changed. I don't know why they sent the other voting place to Bonita Park when there's less population there than us in our area.
Okay. Well, I think we agree with you.
Yeah.
And we're going to ask them
That was my question.
We're going to ask them to add Jefferson back in.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. So all those in favor of the resolution calling for the May 7th election, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. The motion carries. Item 10 is consideration of possible action to approve a resolution calling and ordering a special election to be held on May 7th, 2022, to submit to the Harlingen qualified voters the following propositions for their consideration and approval and any other matters related to the election. Proposition 1, shall Article 9, Section 1 of the City Charter be amended to provide that the mayor shall appoint 2 members and each city commissioner shall appoint 1 member to the Harlingen Airport Board. Proposition 2, shall Article 4, Section 3 of the City Charter establish a lifetime term limit for any elective officers of the elective city commission, including the office of mayor, to be no more than 4 terms of 3 years. Such limitation be a lifetime limitation which become effective prospectively only if the proposition passes at the municipal election held Saturday, May 7th, 2022. Proposition 3, shall Article 3, Section 1, City of Charter be amended to provide that regular municipal elections of the City of Harlingen to elect a mayor and her city commissioners be held during the month of November in accordance with the applicable state law. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like
Opposed.
sign. All right, item 11, consideration of possible action to approve a contract for election services between the City of Harlingen and Cameron County to jointly hold the City of Harlingen general election and the City of Harlingen special election, and to be administered by the Cameron County Elections Department on Saturday, May 7th, 2022, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Is there a motion to approve the contract
I have questions.
Okay.
May I ask them now?
Before, sure.
Okay. So we have here for the contract, the expenses.
Yes, the estimate of expenses.
Yes. Is this for Harlingen only, or is this divided by two, sharing with the Harlingen School District?
That would be for Harlingen only.
Okay, and so the cost is $47,630 for you to administer the election, correct?
It's estimated at that amount right now, yes.
Right, and if we add other precincts, then that cost will go up.
The estimate would go up, but the contract is an actual cost type of contract with the splitting of those things, so it could actually be lower.
Okay, and then do we pay you beforehand, during, or afterwards?
Generally, it's 60% of the estimate, so we do our best to take it as close as possible, but even with some recent elections, we've actually returned money based on that 60%.
And so when do you want the 60% down?
It's March 21st. We understand that we're not sure there's going to be contested races until after February 18th because the actual filing period, and then the write-in candidates and people get withdrawing and things like that. So there's always time built into it. Essentially, Cameron County would be, the costs that are being incurred are more internal and administrative than ballots or actual supplies for the polling location.
Okay, so I have a question for Amanda.
Yes, sir.
3 years ago, we had an election for 1, 2, and mayor. Do you know the cost of that election to the taxpayers of Harlingen?
If I remember correctly, Commissioner Messmer, it was less than $25,000.
It was less than $25,000, and Commissioner Pettis over here gave the impression that we would save a whole hell of a lot of money by going with you. So this is going to cost roughly $22,000 more.
Actually, Mike, I never said it was going to save money. I said it was going to be better for the people of Harlingen because we have a better chance to vote, and it would promote voter participation.
I must have faulty memory syndrome.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. Well, if I may add my 2 cents, I think that I really
I'm
don't.
sorry, could you speak louder? You're mumbling. I can't hear you if you're talking to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I think going through this process, Mike, is going to be more expensive, but it's absolutely worth it. Okay? To give the opportunity to all of our citizens to come on and vote, whatever it is. Cameron County does an outstanding job of running their elections. So I look forward to doing it, and it's all part of change, Mike, and growth. Okay, we're growing. Things are changing, and he just stated that if there was money to be returned, he would return it. They're very transparent. Okay, so I'm excited for the thing, and we'll be able to tweak it. Working with the county, working with the school district. It's not all set in stone. He's asking for the city to give a commitment, and I'm sure the school district's going to do the same thing, because everybody wants a fair and balanced election.
I agree, and thank you for translating everything he said into English for me.
But $20,000 more is a very small amount.
Okay.
Honestly, Mike, I can't think of anything better than spending some of our city's money than on the fundamental right of voting.
But
I don't know if you disagree with that.
I agree with you, but you had said that this would save.
I never said that. You're putting words in my mouth.
You never said that. We're going to have to roll the tape.
Please. Remy, I had one question for you.
If I can just insert, not to choose either side, Commissioner Mesmer, one of the hidden costs to the city is the lost opportunity of the employees that are required to conduct it. And essentially, you can sometimes find situations where people who are being paid $30 an hour doing a job of somebody that we pay $10 or $9 an hour in setting it up. And with the changing of the election laws being so jarring this past year, the reduction in liability of inadvertent mistakes or just simple changes to procedure and training and things like that, it could have unseen savings. I agree.
What do you pay your poll workers an hour?
Right now, we've got them to $15 an hour for the presiding judge, $14 for an alternate judge, and $13 for a clerk.
Okay, and then the poll watchers, are they paid?
Not by the county. I don't know if candidates compensate.
Do we have poll watchers? Do we pay for that, Amanda?
That's something the
Poll
candidates do.
watchers are appointed by the candidate, and they're not paid by the city. So
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Remy, quick question about the hours. I just wanted to verify, the hours from the early voting are going to be from 9 to 7, correct?
Yes, those are the hours that have been adopted through the past couple of election cycles.
And we're also going to be able to vote on Saturday as well from 10 to 5?
Yes.
Okay. So see, Mike, this is a good thing.
Is there
Instead of
Sunday?
having the votings from 8 to 5.
I didn't say it was a bad
No,
thing.
but you mentioned it last meeting. You don't remember? But this is a good thing.
No
All right,
kidding.
is there a motion to approve the contract for the election services
So
between the
motion.
city of Harlingen? Hang on a second, because I'm kind of amending this. A motion to approve the contract for the election services between the Harlingen and Cameron County with a request to add or substitute Jefferson Elementary, Stewart Elementary, Churchill Hills Elementary, and City Hall for early voting for City Hall, and the other three for Election Day.
Yes, so I just want to clarify. For the election, so we're agreeing to put the elementaries you mentioned, and then it's going to be the county annex, the cultural arts center, the convention center, and City Hall, correct?
Yeah, that's in it.
Then yes, I agree.
So we were just asking them to consider these other.
Yes.
And what are we adding for
Okay,
District
that's the
1?
motion.
Motion, yes.
And we have a
Second.
second. We have a second. Is there any other discussion?
What are we adding on 1?
Jefferson.
No, District 1.
Oh, in District 1,
It was TSTC to be considered as the
Okay,
polling
and
location.
the
okay, that
Harlingen
would be
Museum. Wasn't it the Harlingen Museum?
TSTC or the museum?
The museum, yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't sure if it was part of the campus.
Yeah, I think it is. So.
All right. So that's part of the request as well.
And
All right.
you
Any
need to
other
take a
discussion?
motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. The motion carries. Okay, so we're going to go back to the, thank you.
No, thank you all very much.
Remy,
I
for
appreciate it.
being here. I hope, I guess you're going to be late to your next meeting.
But luckily, the staff is going to initiate the training, and I'll try to come
Okay.
up and do it.
All right.
Thank you, Remy.
Thank you all
All right,
very much.
thanks for being
Appreciate it. I look forward to working with the city.
All right, we're going to go to item 2, which is the approval of the minutes of the special city commission meeting of 9/22/21 and the special city commission meeting of 1/20/22. And I do have a question or possible correction on the 9/22 minutes. On page 4, under section 6, the third, fourth, and fifth paragraphs. The first paragraph, I think the first motion that was made was an umbrella motion for the tax rate, the overall tax rate. The second motion that was made was just for M&O, and the third motion that was made was for interest and sinking fund. And I think that and these three paragraphs look identical to me and don't distinguish between the three, and I think they need to be corrected.
Okay, Mayor, we'll do that.
So with that, are there any other additions or corrections to the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
With the as presented
corrections.
with the correction.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. The motion carries. Item 5 is a public hearing to consider an ordinance on first reading for a special use permit to allow a recycling center to buy and sell recyclable items such as cardboard, paper, aluminum cans, and copper in a general GR district located at 720 South F Street, bearing a legal description of lot 36 through 43, Block 1, Harlingen Land and Investment Company subdivision, appealing the disapproval by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yes, Mayor, City Commissioners, good evening. We had an application for the recycling center as described in the agenda item. This is at the corner of F Street and Pierce Avenue. It's this entire property, but the applicant is hoping to use more the west side of the property for the proposed recycling operations. The zoning is a general retail district, but there is a lot of residential zoning near the proposed recycling center. That's a photo of the place where he would like to set up his business. He wants to fix the building and then use this asphalt for his operations. We received a petition in opposition to the request, signed by several neighborhood residents. And then we got an update to the petition this week.
How many were those numbers in opposition?
It's like 60, approximately 60 people.
Wait.
And
the first page, how many are on that page? I count 25 there. Yeah, you have 25 signatures, okay.
Yeah, right there.
Right, down there. Next slide. And 19, and both of these pages are in opposition.
Yes, all of these pages.
Thank
and
you.
then this map shows the property owners that signed the petition reflected in the map. So all of these people, the ones in red are within 200 feet, and then the ones in blue are outside the 200 feet. We did get 30% within 200 feet in opposition, so that triggers a supermajority vote for this to be approved. Staff recommends disapproval because it's nearby residential properties. Code compliance also recommended disapproval, and fire department recommended disapproval. So this went before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and Mr. Casillas, the applicant, spoke in support of his request. Also, several residents spoke in opposition, expressing trash overflow and drainage concerns, crime and safety concerns, a negative impact to their property values, and increased traffic and noise concern. Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously 6-0 against the request.
All right, I'm going to go to item A, which is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak for or against the special use permit appeal?
He only gets 2 minutes.
Is forward, and what is the leisure? Okay, my name is Jorge Casillas. I come from a family that is recycling from 55 years plus in Mexico, but I live here in Harlingen, and I have the needs for open a business for me and for the community, help also the community. Some people think that the business will be dangerous or something like that, but I want to show you what I want to do. There is my business in Mexico. It's in Mexico. I am here, but the Casillas family has more than 55 years since my grandfather, my grandfather started the business there, and after my grandfather, then my dad, then is my brother in Mexico. But I want to open a business here because I live here. My wife works here, is a teacher. I have my kids here. I have seen it's too important to recycling because every day is more recycling item in the trash. We cannot permit that. It's not a need, it's a responsibility of use. I have seen around Harlingen, I don't know, why do you think I will be generating trash when the trash is there? There is every container in the city is like that. It's cardboard. Every container is around the city like that. And you can see the Sam's Club look like that. It's here in Harlingen. Every container. I want to recycle that to prevent to the people drop off to the transfer station. You can see every corner, every dumpster is like that. It's for the reason that I want to be close to the people, because the people can generate that. I want to help them because I know the Harlingen has a recycling center, only drop off, but it's only from 8 to 5 p.m. and the person is working at that time. They have no time to recycling. Also, I want to work with the companies. Provide container free, no charge for that. You can see. I can tell you why they need to be close to the people, because maybe everybody know that building is the Harlingen building, the city. You know what is that? What is there? It's cardboard. Even the city department is not recycling. It's for the reason that I want that. I want to generate 4 or 5 direct jobs, maybe 20, 30 indirects, because I have seen that the business here and the people here is dropping. The companies is paying or sending the recycling, like the iron, the aluminum, the cardboard, to another cities like Broadville, McAllen. I want to. It's almost okay. My plan is open a personal business.
Since you're the applicant, I'm going to give you a little more leeway. I'm going to give you a couple more minutes, but we need to ask you to sort of have a couple more minutes, Mr. Garcia.
Yes. Some people, I worry about because it's a bad neighborhood. There is a lot of delinquents stealing something. They don't know. For scrap business, to buy a copper or aluminum wheels, something of cars parts, I need ID information, fingerprints, and records for every person that sell that. I can sell the person, we don't know them. They can be worry-free, or maybe it's not my problem. Maybe can be a problem of the policy, the police. Is there in 720 South F Street? Like, is 200 feet by 160? I only want to use this like a warehouse. I only use this for material. I don't want to be something bad for me or for the neighborhood, because I want to be.
One more minute.
Okay. I have seen many business. This is in Broadway. It's a business. I don't know why the people say that the property will be look bad. It's like this. I look better than now. Now it's only homeless. It's abandoned zone where it's only people go to drink or whatever. There is a lot of business that is my kind of idea to do this. It's no heavy machinery. Only the heaviest machinery is a forklift and containers. It's similar to the Cycling Recycling Center, but I want to do personal and cost-free, and for metals, pay for them, because I think so. We need that. There's another in Houston. I don't know why the people disapprove that.
Okay, Mr. Casillas, will you conclude your remarks?
It's it.
May I ask a question? For
1 minute is up, Mayor.
He's done.
Okay.
He's done. May I ask a question? To Javier.
Go ahead.
Javier, what was the main consensus of why they voted against it, the planning and zoning?
They have traffic concerns, noise concerns, property value, potential property value impacts.
But is that from did they do a study, or did they reach out to the neighborhood, or is that their personal opinion?
That's what they got from the public hearing from the citizens, and so they.
How many responses did we get?
44.
We had 44 signing the petition. 5 people addressed the Planning and Zoning Commission during their public hearing.
So 44 went against.
No, 44 people signed the petition to not have.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
against it. I mean,
Against
against
it.
him opening, okay.
That's within the 200 feet.
Okay.
And what was the, there's pictures in there, and I just had a question about the attachments. What was that, what business was there before?
That was Hygieia.
It's the old Hygieia,
That was Hygieia, behind Hygieia.
Which has been abandoned for,
it's been abandoned for
For
several
years.
years, yes.
okay, and so when they're saying they want to put this, and they want to keep it in a commercial area, what's the difference between this and Commerce where we had ours?
The zoning is the same. I don't know the history behind the city recycling center, but it's the same zoning.
So.
So there's no difference?
No, there's no difference. And then, you said that there was attachment number 4 or 6 and 7, I believe. Well, they're both numbered 6, and it's pictures, and one of them says recycling center, and then I don't know where are these pictures from?
They were submitted in the petition.
But so what was this for?
But they were
For
from where?
drama, or this is not here in Orange.
Yeah, they were submitted with the petition, so we put them in your.
So that doesn't mean that what he wants to do is going to happen here, because these warehouses are humongous. and
Correct.
That doesn't compare to what
Frank.
is existing at Hygieia. Correct?
Frank,
Okay.
Correct.
if you look at the pictures, up there is a tag up there, and that one says Houston, Texas.
No, I'm talking about other pictures, Mike. You're not
Yeah.
looking at these. I'm looking at these pictures to where, I don't know why they threw these in here.
Well, but to Frank's point, I guess the point I'm making is that if it's in the right commercial, we're not changing the zoning, right?
Correct.
And we have other businesses like that in the city that are doing the same thing, or maybe even on a grander scale, right? And he's willing to follow all the right protocols. Why would we have the ability to stop him from doing that?
Because it requires a special use permit in the ordinance, so the special use permit is at your discretion if you want to approve it or not.
Can we not approve them on like a 6-month? We've done that with bars.
Yes.
We've done that with nightclubs, with other facilities.
Yes, you could certainly do that.
Can we not give them the opportunity to propose his business plan as he suggested? And, have the health department or code enforcement follow up with it and report back to the commission?
Yes, you could certainly do that.
Okay.
If you wish.
There was an uproar.
But it will be a super majority vote.
Of closing our recycling center, and there was just hundreds of thousands of people that wanted a recycling center. We have an opportunity to do this, and not with the city, but a private business owner.
He's going to invest his own time and money.
Right, and now, why would we?
I'd like to
why
make
would
that
this-
motion.
Just a
Well,
second,
we
please.
have to finish the public
sorry.
hearing, and there's some other people that want to speak. So you're going to have to wait on your motion.
I'll wait.
Commissioner. No, Mr. Casillas, I'm going to have to let other people speak now. I'm going to have to let other people speak, okay? If the commissioners want to ask you later, they can ask you later. All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against the special use permit? Please come up to the podium, and you need to please identify yourself and state your residence address. We'll take you one at a time, and you have two minutes, okay?
Okay, Mayor. To Arturo Cruz, property is at 805 West Pierce, right across from where the gentleman wants to put his business. We've lived forever with the old Hygieia. It's abandoned and stuff. And honestly, now bringing in a recycle center is going to bringing in the cans and more rodents. I mean, it's as bad as enough as it is now. We would like that part of town to bring it up. The property where that 805, it was an old abandoned house. Me and my brother, we bought it. We fixed it up. My nieces reside in it now. The other neighbors in the neighborhood. We're trying to make it better, prettier. It's the west side of pond, the other side of the tracks. Everybody doesn't seem to, remember that part of town, but it's an old part of town. I lived there my whole life, 50 years. I don't mind business. Of course, we need new business in town. But I'm sure you wouldn't want that in your front yard
Sir,
looking at it.
I grew up in that neighborhood.
I'm sure the commissioners could help them find a location somewhere, worthy of that type of business, like Commerce. I mean, the one on Commerce, there's a cycling center, but there's no houses around there. Nobody has to live with the noise and
rodents and other stuff that's gonna be coming along with it, you know. You start stacking up cardboard, you start stacking up cans and beer bottles, you're gonna have flies, you're gonna have tacuaches and all kinds of stuff, you know, and we already have that as it is, you know. So we would just like I said, I'm not against the business, but just not in my front yard.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Yeah. And please just state your name and your residence address, please.
Nicolas Cruz, half owner of the house that he's speaking of. My concern is that, like he mentioned crime, that he mentioned it because I brought it up at the last meeting, that he's saying that they're gonna have IDs and all this to buy metal. There's ways around that, you know? You can buy under the table. It was happening on Commerce Street, and I know that for a fact, because I went several times to buy cans there. Nobody ever carded me. Nobody ever asked for my ID. These two gentlemen seems to be in favor of business. I'm in favor of business, but not in my neighborhood. If you guys want it in your neighborhood, more power to you. I don't need that. My brother states a fact that there's gonna be more rodents, more garbage. Maybe what we need to do is just get rid of it and do something else with it. You know, it served its purpose, you know, but the majority of the neighborhood is not in favor of this. His business can go elsewhere. You know, he's looking at because it's cheap rent, or so he told my brother. You know, if that's what he's worried about, maybe he needs to find a different business. Maybe you should rent him the old recycling center. It's already set up for it. You know, city wins, he wins, but not in my neighborhood, please. You know, I don't need that. We need retail. We need stuff that's gonna bring it up. I don't need people coming from across town with huge trucks, trailers. You should see our streets. We don't need any more abuse on our streets. As it is, we can't seem to fix them. This gentleman went and checked out a street that, on J Street, a big old patch, been there for months, that have been repaired. We had called the city several times. It took him to actually come down and see what was happening, you know, and that's just gonna continue to happen with all these. He's saying that it's only gonna be one vehicle. There's gonna be hundreds of vehicles in our neighborhood, you know? And once this business is operating, what keeps from another business up and across the street? Hey, you let him come in, why can't you let me come in? There's a property across the street. I want to go in there too. You got two other people in there. That's just gonna domino effect.
2 minutes are up,
And like
Mayor.
I said, you want your businesses, that business, invite them to your neighborhood.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else would like to speak for or against this special use permit? Please just state your name and your residence.
My name is Ruben Mott, and I live on 729.5 West Fillmore, and it's right next to the property where he wants to do the recycling center. The big difference between this place and the Commerce Recycling Center is the houses right next to it. So over there, it is a commercial lot, and everything else is commercial, but over here, we live right next to it. So there's gonna be a lot of noise, there's gonna be more rodents. That building has been abandoned for a while, and there is homeless people there. It is an actual problem, but I don't think this is gonna fix it. So that's why we are opposing it. There is a lot of residents there. We're fairly close to the spot. I think I live 25, 30 feet from the building. So it's not just a commercial lot. There's a lot of residents around. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else would like to speak for or against the special use permit? Please come forward and state your name and give us your address, please.
Good evening, Indira Mar.
Can you pull the microphone down? Thank you.
803.5 West Fillmore. I'm against it. I would really like for you guys to help out in regards to that building. It's been an issue forever. I've had emails from 2 years ago, but they tell me it's the city, and then they tell me it's the police, because we do have a problem. I don't have anything against the recycling place, because I do recycle, but I don't think that would be a good place. And I would really appreciate it if you guys would start looking at the streets. We have an issue, and nobody seems to care, because we're on that side of town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak for or against the special use permit? Please come forward, state your name, and please give us your address.
Thank you very much for letting me speak out, you know, and I appreciate it. You let me do this because really I'm against
Your name and address, please.
My name is Jose Sanchez. I'm the owner of 916 West Pierce. It's close to that place where you guys want to let you or, you know, whatever. But I have long time living here. I was born here in Harlingen, and I have most of my life living here, and I'm proud of my city, really, and I would like to have better city, not worse city, okay? This kind of business, like I speak last week on the last meeting, why you don't let them keep outside the city, you know, because this is gonna be worse, and I would like to have my beautiful city, not this kind of city, you know. So I hope you guys to make something for all the neighborhood from there, because my brother lives close to is the next of that business. So that's gonna be worse, you know. All they're gonna evaluate all the properties there. Okay, this is my question, okay? Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you
Talk to
very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else like to speak for or against this special use permit?
Good evening. My name's Terry Finch. We own the property that borders the fence of this planned recycling center, 806 West Pierce. We are against this for many reasons. One is the devaluation of the property that we could see with this in place. And one thing to mention is that there's been some redoing of some old houses in the neighborhood. There's been a new house put on the corner within the last couple of years. So I believe that Pierce Street, in one in particular, is starting to see an upward trend in, you know, evolving into something newer. And I think this would just bring it kind of take a step back with it. I appreciate the presentation he presented, but I know what those cardboard bundles look like. I work in a warehouse. You know, we do a lot of produce, so I know what those bundles look like, and I know what they look like stacked up out in front of somebody's home. So, you know, it would be an eyesore for everybody there. I know the Hygeia place is not the most ideal place to look at, but I think that's, you know, definitely a topic for something further down the road. But I'd appreciate if you guys did not approve this. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak for or against the special use permit? Is there anyone? Hearing no one else, I'll close the public hearing and go to item B, which is the consideration of possible action to approve an ordinance on first reading for a special use permit to allow a recycling center to buy and sell recyclable items such as cardboard, paper, aluminum cans, and copper in a retail general GR district located at 720 South F Street, bearing a legal description of lots 36 through 43, Block 1, Harlingen Land and Investment Company subdivision. Ask the city attorney to read the caption on the ordinance.
May I say something, Mayor, real quick? I just had a question for Javier.
Well,
Okay,
there's just a process, and the next thing is for him to read the caption, and then you can ask a question, so we can kind of finish that part of the process.
Public hearing and take action to consider a request for a special use permit to allow a recycling center to buy and sell recyclable items such as cardboard, paper, aluminum, cans, and copper in a general retail district located at 720 South F Street, bearing a legal description of lots 36-44, 43, Block 1, Harlington Land and Investment Company subdivision, appealing the disapproval by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, Commissioner, go ahead.
Javier, when I was looking at the notes, I noticed, is the building that he's trying to, is it condemned? Because I thought I read that.
It has been declared as an unsafe structure, yes. The old Hygeia building, yes.
Okay, so even if it was to be approved, he'd have to do any improvements before he could even actually do it, correct?
He will have to hire an engineer to give us a set of plans to bring the building into compliance with the building codes.
Okay.
Okay. So a motion and a
Mayor,
second.
I'd like to motion for an approval contingent upon a 6-month probationary period.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
He moved to approve the ordinance.
May I make a comment or ask a question?
Can we get to the discussion part?
Well, discussion, yes.
Which that comes after the second. You guys are kind of wanting to get ahead of the whole process here. Okay, is there a second?
Frank, second.
All right, we have a second. Now we have discussion.
Okay. When 44 people sign a petition and say no, When the planning, whichever committee this came before, said no, 6-0, and the fire department says no, and you get 5 or 6 people show up here saying no, why would you want to destroy retail, or not the retail, why would you want to destroy the residential businesses around that? And I'm all in favor of private industry, hallelujah, go out and make money. But this isn't the right location to put in a recycling center with all the debris and the dust and the whole life form systems that develop around stuff like this.
Okay, let me address that, Mike. Okay, first of all, like I said, we're not changing the zone. It is zoned for that. Okay, before he starts, he's going to have to make improvements to the building and work with city staff and actually hire an engineer to improve the property even before he starts. And I grew up in that neighborhood. I know exactly where it's at. Right? I don't think we have the ability to tell a private business person. Now, if he was trying to change the way the land use and make all changes, but he's absolutely doing the right thing the right way and willing to go through the whole process. So I think he deserves an opportunity, and you put that contingent upon letting him prove that he's going to do the right thing.
Excuse me, Richard, Commissioner. What's going on here is simple. Okay, he's going to have to make. He hasn't realized how much he's going to have to invest into that project. Okay. Secondly, you're giving him 6 months to prove if it's worthy. The whole thing is
compliance.
Well, please let this gentleman finish.
My
his
whole
comments.
thing, and I spoke with him last week after the meeting, is just like Commissioner Mesmar just mentioned, I'm in favor of that, not there. The gentleman, Mr. Cruz, said the same thing. We need to find a better location.
Okay.
That's all it amounts to.
Okay, then do you want to change the zoning ordinance then?
That right there?
I mean,
What-
because
what-
you
what-
have 5 or 6 tire shops there, you got mechanic shops there, you got an old egg produce plant there, you have tienditas in that neighborhood, within the neighborhood. So you're going to change those ordinances on those things?
No, Richard. What we need to do is tear down that building. That's what we need to do.
But
we do not need to turn around and spruce it up. Okay, so we need to alleviate. You claim you live there in that area. Here's one of the issues that
one at a time.
Yes.
One at a time.
This is one of the biggest issues they have, and it's called flooding and drainage issues, major. Okay. Now, Mr. Cruz also mentioned there's going to be some heavy trucks going through there to remove that recycle all the stuff that he has going on. That's going to tear into the streets even more. And if you ever driven by there, there's not much parking. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're looking at Fillmore side or the Pier side. You have a potential real mess up there. Okay, what I asked him and what I'm asking of ourselves is to find a better location for him so he can be successful. And the city can benefit off of that, and most of all, the citizens can. That's it. It doesn't, we're not out here trying to say, no, we're against the business. We're not, we need it. We just need to find a better location. I came across this last week. I have not driven around to find a location for him. But guess what I did get? Guess what I do have? I have a list of properties that the city owns. The biggest question is, can we, the city, spot him a location? Probably not. But you know what? That question is being asked. And I will have my answer. And I will forward the answer to Mr. Casillas. So, enough. Go ahead.
Okay. So one of the things is that's an old building, and they made ice cream there. And you need super insulation. And old buildings have asbestos in it. Has anyone done a engineering study of that building for asbestos removal, and there's asbestos there. And that would cost $100,000 to $300,000. Then you're going to ask them to sink in $300,000, $500,000, $600,000 into a business for 6 months, and then the city could say, "Nah, you're out of here." And then how does he recover his $300,000 or $600,000? Whose liability is that? Let me ask the attorney. Whose liability would be that if he sinks $500,000 or so in and we take it from him?
But we haven't even gotten that far.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean, that, it would be his liability.
Okay.
He wouldn't have any liability.
Okay.
And you're assuming that these things are existing right now. We don't know that. That's why we're suggesting a contingency to find out what he can and can't do. If he can't meet those contingencies, then it's over with. We're just, this building, this site has been abandoned for over 20 years. Somebody wants to come in and make improvements. There's homeless people there, there's rodents, you're right. But how do we know he's not going to eliminate those problems? You're assuming there's going to be these big trucks going on. We haven't even discussed his business plan with him, so where you're getting that, I don't know. But again, all we're doing is asking for contingencies. If you can't meet them, then it dies. It's no big deal, but at least you're letting this guy, giving him the opportunity to open up a business and make that neighborhood better and distribute more
You're
money.
right, Frank. I'm making assumptions that 44 people who signed a petition
Out of
against
how many
this,
people in that
and the
area?
fire department who voted against this, and before the committee it
You're
came
right.
to lost
Okay.
6-0. Those are all my assumptions.
correct.
One at a time.
You're
You
correct,
can-
Mike. He interrupted me. I'm just saying you're correct, Mike. But we're assuming you're already making the accusations, and you're predicting, the future, and we haven't even given him the opportunity to come up with a solution. And one of the solutions, and it wouldn't be a bad idea, is to sit down and talk to some of these people to see what they want, and then let them continue to try and work together. Again, all we're doing is asking for these contingencies to see if he can meet them. He might not be able to, but at least we're giving him the opportunity to try that.
I think Commissioner Morales has made a good point, and that is that, that there probably are some opportunities to help Mr. Garcia somehow find another location. But with the neighborhood being so overwhelmingly opposed to having this facility used as a recycling center, we should listen to the people that have elected us to office and are the reason why we're sitting up here. We
Yes,
can't
sir.
continue.
Mayor,
we can't continue to disregard what our citizens are telling us about their own neighborhood. They live there. We should listen to them. We should listen to what they have to say, because that's where they live, and they don't want this facility there. So I would urge you to listen to our residents, our citizens, and because they are, in fact, the people that are in charge of the city of Harlingen, as the woman said earlier tonight.
Mr. Mayor, to your point,
I know that
you're addressing something, Mayor, and I want to.
No, I'm going to continue. I'm just going to continue to talk so that I can make it clear that we're not really supposed to interrupt each other up here, just one at a time. All right, now you can respond, Commissioner.
I absolutely agree with you 100%, but I've seen you since I've been here time and time again, ignore citizens. The way I'm looking at it is, and what I'm saying is, you have an area that's designated for this type of business, and he followed the exact same rules. I mean, the rules he was supposed to. He went through the whole process. And that's okay. You want to vote not to let him do it? I'm just looking at the point of, the city has a list of things you need to do. He checked everything off. He's willing to do everything to open that business without changing the use of it, right? Now, if we as a commission, and you all strongly feel that, bring that to the table. Let's rezone that to where it does not happen. But you have time and time again gone against.
Tell me one time.
Oh,
Tell
man.
me one time.
When we
Specific example.
when we opened up the new stripes over there
And
by
you
Travis
killed an
Elementary.
ordinance.
You all changed an
For
ordinance.
his safety. You didn't care about the children?
You didn't- nobody
care
listened
about
to
the
the
safety
public
of it?
at that point.
But and you already had a cell agreement with the school district, and you said not to worry about this commission. And that was caught by him on a hot mic, saying that you already had a deal with the superintendent to sell the property for Mr. Bonner and Circle K. Right? That's the latest.
There weren't 40 people that signed a petition opposing the
The
stripes.
Diocese of Brownsville was against it.
There weren't, and the reason that the stripes was approved was because we don't. The state law trumps city regulation of gasoline tanks.
And that's why you had
so
an
that's
ordinance.
that's the answer to that one.
and some-
Is there any other constructive discussion?
My turn.
Well, let's Commissioner Pettis, and let's try to resolve this.
I commend Mr. Casillas for wanting to recycle. I think Harlingen needs more recycling. And the only thing is, though, is that I see the P&Z and I see the fire department and I see code of compliance. I see them as safeguards. And I know what you guys are saying, that, he's met the requirements, but technically he hasn't. I don't see him having met the requirements for the planning and zoning, or the fire department, or the code compliance at all. And I commend him, and I want him to do the recycling. But since he hasn't met any of those requirements, plus you do have quite a few people that are actually took the time to come over here. I don't think that is something that we should approve. I think I like Commissioner Morales' idea that we should look into it and find another location. But until he meets those requirements, I mean, everything we have as a safeguard, he hasn't met. I mean, the P&Z, the code compliance, and the fire department. That's the one that bothered me the most, the fire department. That the structure that he wants to use it's been technically, you said condemned, correct?
Unsafe structure.
Unsafe structures. That's what I'm worried about.
But Rini, that's what the special use permit is for, so that way he can do those.
He would have to go through those processes even before he got a CO.
But the thing is, my thing is, I would rather.
I understand. I get
Yeah.
it. My argument is not against the neighborhood, or my argument is this is what that area is designed for. Now, if he was bringing a strip club or a smoke shop or some other type of business that didn't fit into that zoning, then I could understand all the opposition and stuff. But that's the area it's in, right? I get that. So
My thing is, if he had came to us with everything already, like, the planning zoning said it was
I get
good,
you. No, I
the code
get it.
compliance,
I get
all
it.
that.
Why
then
don't
I'd
you
be
let him
like, okay.
finish?
I get it.
If all those other things had already been approved, then I'd have been like, yeah, go for it. I understand what you're trying to do and stuff like that. But at the moment, right now, I don't think that's what's the issue right now.
Okay, is there any other discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed.
What are we voting? Oh, yeah.
On your motion.
Gotcha.
Okay, all right, the ordinance, the special use permit ordinance fails, and so the special use permit is denied. All right. Okay. All right, thank you. We're going to go down to item 6, which is consideration of possible action to approve a variance to the City of Harlingen Code of Ordinances with regards to the sidewalk escrows required for the proposed breezeway subdivision located at 2727 North 21st Street. Applicant Casa Engineering, Karen Robert Leftwich.
Yes, Mayor, this is a one-lot subdivision for a proposed apartment complex. This is on 21st Street, like 200 feet south of Vinson Avenue. That's the layout of the proposed apartment complex. It will be an addition to the neighborhood. The zoning is in place for the apartments. That's the aerial photo of the property of the one-lot subdivision. That's a photo of the property. There are some sidewalks in the area. There are some sidewalks on Phoenix Drive, which is a private street. There's Phoenix on 21st Street between Phoenix and Rio Hondo. There are some sidewalks along in the apartment complex at the corner of Vinson and 21st. There are sidewalks along Vinson Avenue, but this area does not connect. This part of 21st Street does not connect to Phoenix or this other part of 21st Street. And I have some photos to show you that the street does not connect. This went before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and Mr. Leftwich made a presentation to the board, and the board voted 5-0 in approval of the granting of the variance with 1 abstention.
Who abstained?
Mr. Garcia, J.V. Garcia.
Okay. But he was present?
Yes, he was there.
Okay. So this is a legal question. Okay, so in ethics violations, if we abstain, I'm sorry, am I telling jokes now, Richard?
You're about to.
I'm about to. Okay,
Yeah.
tell me the joke. Tell me the punchline.
When we get to the item, I'll explain it to you.
We're on the agenda.
All right, what,
Okay, so what I'm getting to is, if we're up here and a vote involves somebody up here, but we abstain and we don't leave, that's an ethics violation, correct?
First of all, I prefer if you're going to give me legal questions about things that are pretty good executive sessions. But no, for abstention, what's required is not to participate in the discussion in any way. And not to vote.
he filed an affidavit, right?
My understanding.
Okay.
Okay, he filed the affidavit,
Well-
Mike, so that's,
Okay, well, that wasn't clear. Okay, thank you. You've answered my question.
okay.
And I have a further question then. When projects go in, Javier, they're required to put in sidewalks, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, where is the wisdom in not requiring this firm to put in sidewalks?
This went before the Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Leftwich expressed that there's no sidewalks in this part of 21st Street from Vinson.
So should we approve this, who pays for the sidewalks?
If the city in the future has a sidewalk project, it will be the city of Harlem.
So we're transferring the expense from a developer or developers to individuals, to the taxpayers of Harlingen. That's the net result of this, correct?
If the city builds a sidewalk project in the future, yes.
Right, so I don't see the wisdom in giving a developer a sweetheart deal, a layup, and having the citizens of Harlingen pay for that.
Mike, I'm going to give you 2 different projects on the loop and the projects in your own district in Treasure Hills where the prior commission with the developers told them they didn't have to do sidewalks.
Okay, which ones are those,
The
please?
storage units that are on the loop, 499 off Montezuma, there's 2 of them. And the whole loop's supposed to have sidewalks. And those are big projects off the main road, right? And then in your district, where in those neighborhoods in the back, the developer came in, but they're friends of yours, and you said, we weren't going to.
I have no idea. Who and what are you talking about?
I'll have the city bring that up.
Well, you brought it up now. Tell me, please. Who are these people?
I will get it for you.
And how do I know I'm friends? Well, I want that information now.
I will get it for you. I'll get it for you.
Okay, all right, just,
I'll get it for you.
all right, guys, listen, this is not an argument. This is, everybody gets to speak one at a time. So finish your comments, Commissioner Uribe, and then
What I'm
Commissioner
saying
Messmer
is
is going to get
that-
to respond.
What I'm saying is that this commission has long done that and done away with that and not made the developers put sidewalks in, especially when it was common sense that they didn't have to put them in. Okay? Now, I think the applicant can probably better describe why he doesn't need to put a sidewalk or his thing, and I think it was described to planning and zoning.
Okay,
And I think they agreed.
All right, the ordinance is, correct me if I'm wrong, Javier, but this was brought up at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and it was asked why a development that was built prior to 2019 wasn't required to put the sidewalk in. You indicated that these other developments had basically been built prior to the amendment of the ordinance, right?
Yes, the subdivision for this apartment complex was developed before 2019. Back then, no sidewalks were required if the street didn't have curb and gutter. The ordinance was amended in 2019 to require sidewalks in all streets.
Okay, and the city commission, instead of in 2019, amended the ordinance to try to transfer the burden of building sidewalks in the future to the developers now. I mean, that was the idea behind it. So I think that may answer your that question about these other developments that Commissioner Uribe was talking about were built prior to 2019.
And then I have
but
questions.
The staff, but I just to recount, the staff recommended against approval of the variance, but the PNC Commission voted in favor of the variance. Correct. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, and then if I could use the F word, what are we doing about flooding and drainage on this plan?
Well, if you want to
well,
respond to it, that's
we
fine.
should talk about that street. That street hasn't been curb and guttered since its inception over 60 years. Commissioner Mesmer, you talk about drainage infrastructure. There's no stormwater system through that street. There's no curb and gutter. I'm going to develop it. I'm spending my money. Y'all are asking me to put $5,000 of sidewalk escrow money, and then I've got to go spend another $5,000 before I can go claim that money back. That's $10,000 of development that I could be applying to further escalate the completion of this project. And, you know, when I have to spend $10,000 to do $5,000 worth of sidewalks, that sounds like Mesmer math to me. And the fact is, there's no drainage there. So I'm spending more money for detention ponds so that I can meet a 50-year flood because the city has not invested in there. And let's talk about the sidewalks going on around town that have been going on for over a year. All of that is grant money. That's not coming out of tax money. The fact is, the failure of the city in multiple occasions. First of all, that road is incorrectly identified as a collector street on the thoroughfare plan, and I'm having to pay an excessive road assessment for a road that will never be there. So I'm paying more for some competency issues with the city. The other thing is another competency issue. Those two brand new schools right there, well, you know what? When you do sidewalks, pathways to schools, that's grant money. That whole street should have been done under that program, and I guarantee that's what paid for those sidewalks that are on Phoenix. And Mr. Mesmer, you surprised me when on the last issue, you say it was unanimously against it. Now they're unanimously for it, but you're not for it.
Mayor, 2 minutes are up.
All right.
And Mayor, you gave that other gentleman more time because he was the applicant, and I'd like to have more time. And if anybody has any questions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments.
I see that's not going to be fair.
We'll ask you if you have another question. All right. Does anybody have any other discussion on this? We haven't really actually called. Is there a motion? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. We have a second to approve the variance. I think it's good that we try to help developers reduce their costs, but we're not being consistent in the way we apply that, and we're making other developers spend a lot more money on things that they don't think that they have to need to do either. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Opposed.
All right. Item 8 is a consideration and possible action to approve a professional services agreement between the City of Harlingen and Hollis Rutledge and Associates, Inc., and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Mayor, members of the commission, in December, Commissioner Morales and I went up to Mission to meet with Hollis Rutledge. He is a grant writer that can help the city with especially his upcoming infrastructure grants that President Biden has approved, the Congress has approved, rather. He would do it for a flat fee of $3,000 a month. There is a 30-day out clause by either party. What I'd like to do is perhaps use him for about a year, see what he's able to do for us, and if he's able to help us, maybe keep him for another year, but if we haven't had any results in a year, just terminate the contract.
So you've talked to him?
Yeah, yes.
Gabe, how does he get paid?
He would get paid $3,000 a month. It's a retainer fee.
Okay,
We
3,000 a month.
We budgeted for a grant writer.
Okay.
That was one of our budget objectives, and we budgeted for it. And this is going to fill that.
Well, we did budget, no, we're still going to fill that position in-house, but we'd have to have a budget amendment to cover this, but we have some salary savings to do that. The grant writer that we have budgeted would be a special projects grant writer to help Anna in the special projects department.
So we will pay him $3,000 a month regardless of results?
Yes.
And if he scores super big?
We did great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, I thought this was going to this was going to take the place of the grant writer. This is going to be what we were going to use for that because
we had talked about doing that, Mayor, but I think she still needs the help in that department. She's a one-person department doing that, and she's come up really good in some of the
All
grants.
right. Is there a motion to approve the agreement with Mr. Rutledge?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 12, consideration of possible action regarding placement and investment of certificates of deposit held by the city of Harlingen pursuant to Harlingen's investment policy. This item was placed on the agenda by
myself.
Commissioners Uribe and Puente.
Okay, is Robert available? Okay, so I know we've talked, but, I wanted to discuss this in front of the commission, right? And what I wanted to do is the last meeting we had, when I was asking about how we manage our money, or who's managing our money, right?
Right.
To Commissioner Bettis's point of safeguards, right? I understood we had, is Ann available, or is she here?
She is not here, no.
Did you ask her to be here?
I did not know.
Why didn't we, I specifically asked for her to be present either through Zoom or a representative from Hilltop Securities. Why didn't I hear?
Mayor, I'm sorry, Commissioner, that was an oversight on our part. We should have.
No, I asked him specifically to have her here.
Okay, we can have her here for the next meeting if you'd like.
Okay. Well, here's what, I know there's two items on the agenda. Is this on the policy?
No, sir.
This is on the CD itself,
Yes.
the CD itself?
That's correct.
All right. What I wanted to find out is the way I understood our conversation was, we have a mechanism in place where we have Hilltop Securities managing our money, but then a few years back, administratively, our investment policy was changed to allow the finance director to move money into certain accounts or move money. I wanted to get that explained. But doing that and doing so, and when you told me we had, money market account CDs, that was a red flag for me because when we hired you, right, this commission hired, you were coming from the school district, and the school district does a very good job with, they have an excellent accounting department, and the other city manager said you're going to raise our standards and make everything better, right? And they themselves do not invest. They haven't invested in CDs or money market accounts over 15, 20 years because there's such a low return on investment, right?
Right.
And so I just want to know how we got to that point of the policy decision, because I also understand, I know Mike's a financial guy, that you have to have certain licenses and to be able to do that kind of stuff with money because it's municipal money.
Right.
And I would think that as we have a responsibility to make sure that we are investing our money at the best possible way. And why would we remove Hilltop Securities from that oversight?
Right. We've never removed them from the oversight. They do our quarterly report, and they also will direct our investments through a safekeeping account that we have through our depository, Frost Bank. So we hadn't utilized them in a while. We've always only had text pool and CDs.
But this particular CD was initially only $2 million.
Initially.
And then it was moved to $5 million.
Right.
That's a $3 million decision that I was never aware of. I don't think that ever came before us here in a meeting for us to approve, and I thought we were supposed to have that oversight as well.
Well, I mean, as a finance director, I think I have the approval to move the money into CD.
So you can move $3 million without anything.
As long as he generally checks with Hilltop, he's allowed to do that.
But he didn't check with Hilltops with this.
Well, I don't think it's required to check through Hilltop. I mean, we can move into
Well,
a
see,
CD.
but that's the
We used to have it in a BBVA account, and it was about $2 million, and then because of the interest rate was very good, it was like double. We did move more money in there.
Okay, because the way I read our policy, this transaction goes against our own policy. Okay? That's the way I read it. Now, I'd like to get a legal opinion on it. That's why I wanted to bring it up, to get a legal opinion from the attorney. I'd like to have somebody look at that and make sure that there was no kind of impropriety done, because, I mean, that's a whole lot of money. But then on top of that, I go and I look and I ask information from the airport board. And the airport board did the same thing. And they moved some money. And then I looked at Harlingen Waterworks, and they moved over $9 million. Okay, so that, when you combine all that, we have over $15 million that we moved into one source, and we're getting less than 0.25%. I don't think that's the best way to spend our money. And Robert, your words were, it was just excess cash. And we're not qualified to make that decision. I think we have to use Hilltop Securities or whoever our people are to sign off on it. There has to be some kind of checks and balances on that. And that's why I want to visit our policy. I want to see the whole timeline of when all this money was moved and how the decisions were made, any emails, any type of transaction, that how the decision was made, that it did not even come to this commission. And I do consider the airport and waterworks part of the city, because it's all the same.
They are.
They're all the same. And that's over $15 million, right? So I want to be clear and transparent, and fiduciary, be responsible with that money, and make sure that we did not do something wrong, because it doesn't look right. It may be proper. I mean, it may have been followed the right way, but it doesn't look right.
What I can do, Commissioners, normally we don't come to the commission for investment decisions. We do that ourselves, but we can change the policy so that if you want to have that.
I just like to get the policy visited, because our policy shouldn't be less stringent than Harlingen Waterworks or Airport. Either we should be the flagship, or we should all have the same policy, my opinion, right? But I don't know what you all think about, moving that kind of money and without just, signing off and it just going everywhere. And then if you tie it, again, the problem I have is when you tie up that kind of money, that's against our own policy. So there has to be somebody sign off saying, yes, either go through legal, saying, you know what, the attorney went and blessed it, and it follows all the right protocol. But I believe that what happened is against our own policy.
Well, the policy says, under Section 5, responsibility and control, delegation of authority and training, authority to manage the city's investment program is derived from a resolution of the City Commission. The management responsibility for the investment program is hereby delegated to the Director of Finance, who shall establish procedures for the operation of the investment program consistent with this investment policy. So the Director of Finance and the Deputy Director of Finance are designated as the investment officers, and goes on to talk about the training they have to have in order to invest it, And, so I'm not, so that's the way the policy reads. And as I understand it, that's the way, I don't ever remember any investment decisions coming before the commission. Those are, we set up the guardrails, if you will, in the investment policy for how money should be invested. But then we delegate that to you as professionals to make these decisions and determine where the best placement of our funds should be. And that's according to the policy that the City Commission has approved.
Right. When was that approved, Mayor?
It's approved every year of the investment policy, but I don't think it's changed in many, many years. Hilltop Securities does review the investment policy.
So you've approved it 3 times.
No, I'm asking the resolution that you were talking about. When was it first?
I can go back and look. I don't know when it was originally approved.
When it first was created, okay.
I could go back.
And I agree. I don't believe in micromanaging, but I'm not saying. I was under the impression that we always had recommendations by Hilltop, and that's what we hired them for.
Right.
But then, and just so to clear things up, Gabe, you said we make those decisions. When you say we, are we talking about
Finance.
Staff, right.
who?
The finance director.
Okay, so you make that
That's it,
decision,
yes.
not we.
Right.
You're right. The finance director normally makes those. He'll check with Hilltop.
Even
What-
if Hilltop were to direct, if they were to direct us where we would be investing our money, I would have to make that authorization. So they would consult with us and say, you need to direct it here, here, and here, and then I would have to sign the authorization for Frost Bank to direct that into a safekeeping.
So I'm confused. Do they give you recommendations, or
They
you
do give us
make those
recommendations,
decisions?
but I give the ultimate authority and say so of yes, move it to that safekeeping.
Okay.
Did they, quick question, did they recommend you, did Hilltop recommend for you to make these CDs?
They did not know.
So
Okay.
what I'd like to ask the commission is if gave direction to, one, get the right data or get the right information, because I'd like to see during that time how all those entities move that money. What was the time frame? Who made the decision? Did they, because Harlingen Waterworks has their own investment people, and so does the airport. I just want to coordinate and see them, and just to make sure that it was all above board. And I think we owe the city that transparency.
So we already.
And I'm sorry, and I would like the direct legal to look at our policy, and can we tweak that or put better safeguards in place to be more transparent and accountable?
We can try to have a meeting with Hilltop next week. I'm sorry, at the next meeting, just discuss the
I already thought she
policy.
was going to be here. I mean, I specifically wanted to ask her questions because she would know, right? She'd have all the timelines.
Yeah, and I apologize for not asking to be here, Commissioner. That's my fault. But I can have her here if you want to discuss investment policies.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know what is there a proposed action here?
Yes, sir.
What's the proposed action?
What I like, again, is I like to propose that have Gabe work with the staff and give us a timeline on how, in the last 5 years, how we move money from tax pool and all those other investments from those professional people to us moving $15 million of the city's money into a bank, into CDs and money market accounts that do not have a great return of investment at all.
Gabe, I have a question, if I may.
And specifically, again, I want to make the point that, our finance director came from the school district, which does not do that. Right?
Okay.
Gabe, to start off, Commissioner Uribe.
But I have a motion on the floor. I'd like to get a vote.
Yeah. Commissioner Uribe started off and said that we hire the finance director. Who hires the finance director?
City manager does.
The city manager does, okay. And a question for Richard Uribe. Why do you think these interest rates are puny compared to what?
That's why I wanted Ann here from Hilltop.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking for the information. I want to be real transparent.
May I answer some of these questions?
I'd rather hear from our person that's hired, who we paid to give those answers.
Interest rates approach zero. And in 5,000 years of human history and finance, interest rates have never been approaching zero anywhere. So we live in abnormal times. The Federal Reserve has indicated, whether they do it or not, is they're going to make 3 to 4 to 5 interest rate rises this year. I don't know if it's just table talk or it's real behavior. As should interest rates go up after, this is 17, 18 years of super low interest rates. Should they go up again, then the finance director can find money markets and CDs that pay more. Most money markets today pay 0.01 or 0.02. And so when the Federal Reserve artificially lowered interest rates to bail out the economy and kept them there, it penalizes institutions like Harlingen, municipalities, and it penalizes people who have lived on CDs and money markets back when money markets paid 6, 9, 12, 18%, and CDs paid 18, 21%. So it's a different world, and you have to compare current interest rates against current interest rates. And so nobody, I sort of get the impression you think maybe we've been cheated, but interest rates are squat. And that's what you're going to get on your investments. Now, the other thing I hear is why do we put it with one bank? And so I hear something on the undertow.
Mayor, point of order, he's given a presentation that's not on the agenda, so I'd like to at least make a motion to table this so that way we can have Ann and Robert.
Right information.
All right, there's a motion to table. Was that a second?
I'll second it, contingent upon that they bring the right data and just bring
Well,
the history of those CDs.
There's no discussion on a motion to table, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, the item is tabled. Is there any need to go to item 14? Item 14, discussion and possible action on the City of Harlingen investment policy. That's also for.
Motion to table that as well.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. Item 13 are board appointments.
I have one for the Animal Advisory Board, Noemi Cisneros.
I have one for the same board, Yolanda Lozoya.
Any other board appointments? All right, is there a motion to approve board appointments?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Did I miss anything? I skipped around a little bit. I think I got everything. All right, if not, then that concludes our agenda, and therefore our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Good night. Be safe.